Chapter 22. I go home and immediately fire up the computer. I need to find out more about forced marriage and what to do if you suspect it has happened. I find one horror story after another. The stories I read of girls that are forced into marriage are more horrific than I could imagine. There is one girl who was kidnapped and taken abroad. She was forced to marry some really old man. He beat her every day, and eventually, when she refused to do what he wanted, he threw her down a well and killed her. Another case was where a girl's own dad killed her for dating a boy. He said she was too Western. There are so many examples, and with each I feel more sick. My stomach turns over. I am shocked by how many examples there are. By the time Dad comes home, I'm in a real state. Oh, darling, the last thing you should do when you're worried about something is to randomly surf the net. You can end up with inaccurate information and really get yourself worked up, explains Dad. Look, I spoke to your head teacher today. I glance up at Dad. Yes, darling, I've been trying to make some inquiries and make sure the appropriate people are informed about Abby. Mrs. Andrews suggested that if we want to find more about ourselves, and we should look at the website of Freedom Charity. Maybe that's something you can do in the morning once you've calmed down a bit. I get up early Saturday morning to check out the charity website Mrs. Andrews has suggested. Mum is up too, bustling around the kitchen and making breakfast as I read up on what Freedom Charity does. Sophia soon emerges from my room and immediately starts flicking through the TV channels. There's only news on. The news is boring. Every 15 minutes they repeat what they just said, and there's more violence on it than WWF. And you say I can't watch that, she complains loudly. Dad wanders into the room now, whistling while he towel dries his wet hair. What are you doing, darling? He asks, peering over my shoulder. Ah, yes, I had a good look at that last night. Sophia starts doing what she always does when there's nothing on, pounding Mum's scatter cushions when suddenly she shrieks, Vinny, quick, your school's on TV, she shouts. By the time we dash to the living room, the news item is over, and because Sophia was so busy shouting for us, she's missed the story too. Drats, you missed it, she sings, jumping up and down on the sofa. Are you sure it was my school? I ask. Yes, do I look stupid? I know what your school looks like. Don't worry, it always repeats itself, that's why it's so boring, she says, drawing out the word boring as she flops back onto the sofa. We sit quizzing Sophia about what she can remember about the story. But Sophia's right, 15 minutes later the news item repeats itself. Dad pulls Sophia close to him on the sofa, probably to keep her quiet, but she looks chuffed with herself for noticing the news item in the first place. We listen as the reporter explains how police have just rescued a 15-year-old girl at an airport, moments before her parents were boarding a plane with her, with the intention of forcing her into an overseas marriage. The cameras then switch to a shot outside of my school, and the reporter explains that they are still looking for another girl who has not been seen for several months. A photo of Tara Talley is shown. That's the girl from my school who disappeared. Remember, Mum, I told you. Look, they're showing old shots of it when it happened, and the police were in our school. Was she kidnapped then? Sophia asks, not really understanding what is going on. Shh, Dad urges her softly. He turns up the volume and we sit and listen to the rest of the report. Tara Talley was taken out of school at the end of 2009 winter term. The school initially assumed that she was on holiday, but she never returned, and there was no explanation from her parents. At the time, there were rumours that her uncle and her father had kidnapped her and taken her abroad to be married against her will. The British High Commission have since discovered she was taken abroad to be forced into marriage, and to add further mystery to their story, her parents have disappeared too. The police have detained 2 men for questioning in connection with the disappearances. There's an accompanying shot of the reporter outside Tara's family house. So they didn't forget about her then, I say quietly. The police kept on investigating. I'm glad it wasn't ignored, that Tara wasn't forgotten. I just hope the same will happen for Abby, that someone will care, and care enough to do something. I squeeze Dad's hand. Now the reporter speaks directly to the camera. If you are worried you may be forced into marriage, or you know of anyone who you think may be at risk of it, there is a way to get help. The details will appear on the screen now. And while the reporter signs off, the website I've just been looking at appears on screen. www.freedomcharity.org.uk. I repeat out loud to everyone. We sit there staring at the screen until the ads become too loud, and Mum switches it off. I dash back over to the computer. Look, Dad, there's even a checklist about forced marriage. I run my finger down the list as I skim read it. Oh, Dad. Oh no, God no. All of these things on the checklist. It's all the stuff that's been happening to Abby lately. Yes, Vinny, I know. Dad, you've got to do something. I've done all I can for now, Vinny. I've tried my best to get in touch with the Canbys, and I've spoken with the local police, anonymously that is, to ask their advice in case of what we fear is true. After dinner, Sophia jumps up, deciding to give us her own news report. The news at 6, she announces, and there we sit, a captive audience to her bulletin. The news at 6, young girls are disappearing. Bong! This is a report about the horrifying story of young girls disappearing and never being seen again. Bong! They have been taken abroad and are forced into marry. Schools need to make an official report when young girls disappear from school. Bong! She looks very pleased with herself. Mum and Dad smile grimly, but I can't help myself. Sophia, this is real. It's not a joke, you know, and it looks like the same thing has happened to someone we know. Don't you get it? I rail at her. For once, she looks ashamed. Sorry, I know I get carried away. I don't mean to, she says quietly. Okay, girls, that's enough. It's been a fraught week, Mum says. How about some hot chocolate and then it's bedtime for you, Sophia? We snuggle down on the sofa and sit in silence as we sip our drinks. Come bedtime, Sophia makes the usual fuss, but I feel so miserable I'm glad to go. As we lie in our bed, Sophia says, Sorry, Vinny. I really didn't mean to upset you or seem like I don't care about girls who get kidnapped and stuff. I smile into the darkness. It's okay, don't worry, Sophia. You're only 10. It's your job to be silly. Go to sleep now. Night. Night, sis, she says, and very soon I can hear her soft snore. I face the wall and will myself to sleep.